Ben and Angela, I'm here at Park High School in Livingston tonight, and law enforcement have actually set up a command post over here in the high school parking lot. As you can see behind me, it's still a very active scene. Law enforcement has closed off all of the access points to this apartment complex behind me. Well, Greg, I got a nice, pretty pink princess bike here, donated to Toys for Tots, so I can show you guys around just how much stuff has been donated here at Spirit of Giving today. Ride with me if you will. On your left, you see all the warm blankets and all the winter gear that's been donated. Lots of good stuff coming in today. We'll be here for another hour if you guys want to drop off goods. Crow Tribe Police Department says Plain Bull is wanted in connection for an ambush-style homicide on the Crow Indian Reservation Saturday afternoon. Musicians on Call says the Crocs will be an early Valentine's gift for frontline workers. And I guess if anyone's going to make Crocs popular again, I mean, Post Malone, he's going to do it, I guess.
Good point.
Yeah, I mean, would you wear a pair?
No, I don't.
You don't think so?
I don't think I could rock the Crocs. I think you could.
not in Montana. not during the winter. Zach, as I'm looking up at the ceiling of our station here, I'm noticing some icicles that probably aren't going to go anywhere for a long time. In case you didn't know it's cold outside, go ahead and take a look at the thermometer. We are under 30 degrees here in Billings. It's going to be very cold all night. Time to check in with our chief meteorologist, Tracy Smith, on what we can expect for the work week ahead. Tracy, am I going to need some ski goggles or sunglasses this week? It was over 37 million miles away from Earth, and with that many miles, that thing will definitely need an oil change if it ever gets back to Earth. Can you imagine?
Yeah, I guess 5 million miles in space is close
to
something, you know?
Yes, very close. Healthcare workers are putting in long hours this year because of the pandemic, but this patient claims other residents of this nursing home are isolated and flat out suffering because the staff there just can't keep up with the residents' needs.
It was the stuff nightmares are made out of, and I just had no idea that they're all locked in there just as lonely and scared as I was.
This is Bobby Schenderlin. She's a current patient at Aspen Meadows Health and Rehabilitation in Billings. You may have seen her post being shared on Facebook.
We were not allowed to shower because the showering facility, they felt like they didn't want to, contaminate other people.
She's staying at the facility to treat a leg injury. While there, she contracted COVID-19. Bobby tells us after weeks of cold food, barely any showers, and missing clothes, she decided to venture out of her room for help. She put on an N95 mask and started calling out.
And I just started saying, hello, hello.
But at first, it wasn't the medical staff that responded.
It was the most horrendous thing I've ever heard. Those people behind the doors just calling to me, begging me for help.
Bobby says a nurse heard her shouting, but told her to go back to her room, and she wasn't allowed to be out. But she says all of this is not the staff's fault.
This is a management issue. This is not the nurses. This is not the CNAs.
They would have 2 aides on the floor with 2 nurses to 60 residents. There were times call lights weren't even working.
This woman tells us she worked at Aspen Meadows as a CNA. She asked to remain anonymous, but we were able to verify employment through pay stubs. She says staffing at the facility took a toll on her.
My body hurt too bad. I was going home crying. There were times where I've had to call state and my management and turn in people who are being abusive and neglecting our residents.
She says because the facility had such limited staff, sometimes the employees who broke rules and laws were allowed to come back.
One lady illegally restrained a resident. They suspended her. She was back within 4 days.
And there was backlash when she tried to speak up.
When I mentioned that I'm taking it to the state, they threatened me and told me that I abused a resident.
We reached out to the Aspen Meadows facility and the company that owns it, Empress Healthcare. The facility never returned our calls, and Empress declined to do an interview with us. But they did send us this statement, which you can find on Aspen Meadows' website. The statement acknowledges the Facebook post, saying in part, immediately after our staff were made aware of the post, an internal investigation was launched. We also immediately reported the concerns to the state. The Department of Health and Human Services publishes complaints against nursing and rehabilitation facilities on their website. We found a previous complaint filed against Aspen Meadows in 2018. That complaint specifically mentions staffing shortages and cites a federal law that residents must be free from abuse and neglect. The facility did answer that complaint at that time, stating an in-service was held in August of that year to address the filling of open shifts to maintain appropriate staffing ratios while also ramping up recruiting and retention efforts.
This is still going on. And I know that these residents need help, and I'm clueless on to help them anymore.
To say that this teen is tough would simply be an understatement. He survived the crash this summer and had to have surgery on his spine, but that's not stopping him from chasing his dreams and remembering his father the best way that he can.
It's weird because I haven't bared any weight on this foot for months on end.
You could say Reef Hogan has a love-hate relationship with his own legs.
I came up with a name for my legs, so this one is Buff Boy and this one is String Bean.
He's had to use a walker for months after a plane crash this last summer damaged his spine, chest, and legs, and it killed his father. The plane went down on the side of a mountain in the Madison Range west of Big Sky.
To my dad and the pilot, I just, hey, you guys still there? Nobody answered me, and I was like, don't tell me I'm up here alone.
But before rescue crews arrived, Reef found his father's Rolex watch and kept it, something that meant a lot to him.
The plan was to have me graduate from high school. He said he would get me my own Rolex.
But after he was rescued and put in the hospital, the clothes he was wearing that day somehow got thrown in a landfill with his dad's watch in them.
And the spine surgeon, he lost his dad when he was young, and he felt a connection, and I did too.
And that surgeon took it upon himself to go dig Reef's clothes and the watch out of the landfill.
I think if I weren't in shock, I would have been crying because, that stuff was very important to me, and he brought it back.
In this case, what got thrown in the trash was another man's treasure.
If somebody does that for me, then I'm willing to have all my thanks to them,
But Reef says he's already aiming higher.
I'm still crippled right now. I plan to get back up and flying at least earliest by this summer.
And his eyes are already on the sky.
Ever since I lost my dad in the plane, my dad and the plane are what made me actually feel like I was worth something, He bought that plane because he wanted me to fly it.
And while he still has to go to physical therapy and heal, get this, Reef says he actually dropped out of high school and plans to attend Rocky Mountain College to study aviation this coming spring. Students here at MSUB have been raising awareness about mental health this week in an effort to get rid of the stigma surrounding the issue.
We decided to do the hearts that are behind me, 265 hearts, each stand for a suicide lost in 2019.
A powerful image set up in the student union at MSUB. For each heart, a life that ended too soon in Montana.
We're one of the highest suicide rates, always competing with Wyoming and Alaska, unfortunately.
Caitlin says when these hearts went up, the response from her fellow classmates was almost immediate.
The first day that we actually set it up, I had a student come up to me and share his story on how he lost a cousin to suicide.
Statistics put in perspective.
We want those numbers to drop. We want to be the reason why someone chooses to live another day.
Signs around campus point out more statistics. This one says over 45% of MSUB students have felt depressed in the last year.
There hasn't been a year since I've lived in Montana that there has not been a suicide of one of my friends.
Charlene Ulmer says it's a topic that hits close to home.
Having to go to a funeral 2 times, 3 times in a year, losing a friend that you had in high school.
As a member of the Student Activities Board and a resident assistant, she says it's important to be proactive and physically reach out to those who just want someone to listen. She says she regularly posts mental health resources on Facebook.
Not being scared to tell them that you're there, despite the circumstances.
And that's why she wants to stop the stigma.
The longer that we go on not talking about it, the longer we can't help people.